Welcome to Call Your Hits, a Storm Riders Airsoft podcast. Thanks for joining us, everyone. My guest today is Jonno Robinson. You know him, you love him. He is one of our good friends from New Zealand. He is the founder of Special FX, and he is the lead organizer of the New Zealand Airsoft League. He's been on the show before talking about the league. They just wrapped up their first event of the 2026 championship. There's one event every 4 months. The first one just wrapped up in February, and I thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to catch up and talk about how it's been going, how it's been different. And we'll get into that in a little bit. But I also want to take a second to talk about the Special FX podcast. So unbeknownst to me and sort of sneakily in the background, Jonno's been running a podcast for Airsoft in New Zealand. And I thought it was a really good thing for us to bring up, not like to try and invite myself on or anything like that, but just because I think having these types of like podcasts in our communities that sort of happened on the background, kind of like how we had Dave from Zulu talking about the Zulu 24 Airsoft podcast. It's a great opportunity for us to sort of like connect people in those communities with shows that are more regional, that talk about things that happen in their space. So if you are in the New Zealand Airsoft space or you are interested in the New Zealand Airsoft space, I highly encourage you to go check out the Special Effects podcast, and you get to hear Jonno and his crew talk about, all the different things that are going on. So with all that being said, Jonno, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Thank you. It's always nice to be on.
So you've just had the first round of the championships. The first shots have been fired, so to speak. I guess what's your immediate feeling coming off of event one?
I'd say it's probably a massive. Yeah, it's a big relief because there's a lot of planning. They're coming off the 2025 season, thinking about where we want things to head, what changes we want to make, and some of those changes were really big, and so you're always going to be nervous because everything can look like fantastic on paper. But as you know, airsoft is really fluid.
Mm-hmm.
So we can come up with these great plans on paper, and we, think about everything really, really deeply. But it's not until you put those changes into action and see just literally how it plays out, whether you were kind of on point or whether you were far off target and things like that. So to get the first one out of under our belt for the 2026 season was a pretty good feeling, really.
Yeah, and I know, as an event organizer too, you are going to be stressing about things that players may never even realize. They can, I've had lots of events where for me, I think things are falling apart and the players are having a great time. Like you were saying, it's so fluid, right? So I'm excited to get into that in a little bit. Just for people who might not be familiar, do you want to describe a little bit what the structure and the format is of the Airsoft League?
Yeah, so the New Zealand Airsoft League is a 3-round national championship in New Zealand, and basically, what we wanted to create is a skirmish league that was played on big fields. We used the Skirmesh airsoft, the electronic system by Skirmesh, which is made in the US. And so what that gives us the ability to do is create basically a conquest format or domination, whatever, capture the flag, whatever you want to do electronically, and it fully automates the point structure. And it's a 2-day event, so we wanted to create a formal competition that was very in line with what we generally play in New Zealand, which is outdoor airsoft, and it's generally played on large fields. So we wanted it to be we wanted to be very specific as to like what the league was. We didn't want to have something that could accidentally creep into, say, like Speedsoft. We want
Hmm.
Speedsoft to be Speedsoft, and we want the Airsoft League to be very specific and unique to itself. So yeah, basically two-day event, using a conquest gaming structure with an electronic point system.
And I know one of the things that was really, really interesting to me when we talked about it the first time, and something that I unabashedly stole for when we were creating the league here in Newfoundland, is this idea of you can compete as an individual, or you can compete sort of as a squad, as part of as a broader team. And
Mhm.
the championship last year, I believe the team that won, they were called the Beep Magnets, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Um, so looking at this season, did you have like the same teams come out plus additional teams? The teams rework themselves. How did the attendance for this first event look like?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of everything. So we had a bunch of the last season's teams return. So that was really exciting, because these are all things that we kind of being very aware of. Like, are we going to see the same teams from last season come back for this season? We have seen um, uh, new teams and new players introduce. So there's because with the league, it's a minimum for the squads. So we break it down into three classes. There's the championship squads, which are 4 to 6 player teams, and we have the championship individuals. So that's for players that, for many different reasons, don't form into a squad. They compete as an individual. But then we have another unique class, which we call the Disruptor class, and it's really pointed towards players that want to come play 2 days of airsoft, but they don't want the pressure of competing for whatever reason that is. So we actually create an entire team that is made up of probably more casual players that just want to come and play 2 days of airsoft. They don't need to worry about the points, but they actually uniquely disrupt the competing players and hamper their ability to score points, basically.
Right, because the whole idea is, um, from my understanding, when a player like captures a point using the Skirmesh system, they're awarded points by the system automatically. But I
Mhm.
guess if a disruptor player does that, then that's taken away potential points that could be earned by an individual or a squad, right? That's the intent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whether they're hampering their ability to capture locations or whether they're literally just shooting them, basically.
Well, yes, that too. Yeah, I suppose that's a part of airsoft. Um, and when we look at sort of the overall format, from 2025 going into 2026, did you make any sort of structure changes to how that was operating? Because I do think the you had the disruptor players last season as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, we did, but we made a we made a major change with the disruptor roles. So originally, because we had a dynamic where generally speaking, the teams that will register for each round will generally be around a full team, so 6 players. And then we'll obviously get a subset of like individual players. And so originally we had just 2 teams basically that would be made up of these 3 different classes. And that gave us the ability to try and balance both teams out. So we didn't have a weird imbalancing issue or something like that. But we just found some issues. We also found people that were kind of trying to game the game and try and use the classes for reasons that they weren't intended for. Um, so going from 2025 to 2026, we created this third team, which is solely the Disruptor team. So now we have on the field we have three teams, which is basically green and blue team. They're made up of the championship individuals and teams, and then a yellow team, which is solely a Disruptor team.
And what does your player balance look like if you think about how many players are interested in playing as disruptors versus actually being a competing individual or squad?
So yeah, for round one, we definitely had more competitors than we had disruptors, um, but it was like it it was just it created really fantastic gameplay because you had three teams like maneuvering around the field, and they're just when it's just force on force, it's not 100% predictable, but one thing that the skirmish system does is it creates a live map. So you can actually go onto the skirmish website and you can bring up the map of the field onto your phone, and it will actually tell you what each electronic capture device is doing
Mm.
in real time. So you can use it to map out like where should we go next? Like we've captured this location, where should we go next? And also it just gives you that kind of live intel to be like, well, based on what color these devices are, you can kind of surmise that the other team is pushing in a certain direction. But now that we've got a third team in the mix, it's very you've got two other teams that you're going to come up against, and
Yeah, it's a
so
lot less linear. Yeah.
yeah, and it's or like it's like, well, I don't think now I'm not worried about a team just coming in one direction. I'm now worried about two teams coming in two different directions.
Yeah, yeah. I can imagine as a player that would, or trying to coordinate your squad or your team, like that would be definitely add an extra layer of your
Mm,
thinking, right? I want to talk about the actual storyline of like the event, like how it went, like what happened and
yeah.
stuff in a second. But the other thing I just want to talk about with the league that again like is I think so interesting from in a novel sort of way is the idea of treating this like a real sport in the from the standpoint of like infractions and rules infractions and
Mhm.
refereeing or marshaling. I don't know which I can't remember if you use the term marshal or referee in your vocabulary. Um,
Yeah, we use yeah we stick to refs in our language. Traditionally, in with airsoft in New Zealand, we do use marshal a lot. So I just wanted to and marshals is a they're there, but and generally speaking, in like general games that are played around the country, it's quite relaxed.
mhm.
So I really wanted to get away from that because we do take the reffing like super serious. We we do very much treat it like a sport, and there is no flexibility. If it we just like any sport, if your foot goes, if you're just ever so slightly offside, you get penalised. That's how it
Mhm.
works in normal sports. So we recreate that with the league as well. And it's as simple as what caught a lot of players out in the first round was they'd forget to put their dead rag away. We penalise them. As soon as we know that they've respawned, they put their gun up and start moving forward, and they haven't put their dead rag away, we penalise them straight away.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
they
and
didn't
like I
enjoy it.
but I think that's really interesting because like we're just coming off the Olympics, like refereeing in the Olympics in various sports, hockey in particular for us Canadians is a bit of a sore spot. We there's a joke that goes around that says that if hockey refs had one more eyeball, they'd be cyclopses, right? Like they're not seeing anything, they're not making the right calls. But all the joking aside, right? There is a logistic challenge as well about refereeing an event like an airsoft event that is so large and stuff like that, having enough referees on the field to be able to ref consistently. What did you learn from 2025, and like how did you apply that in 2026 to make sure that you're able to have enough people, enough eyes to make the right calls and support the gameplay you're looking for?
Yeah, so it really like it depends on player numbers and the size of the field. So we work to a particular ratio with the refs. So many refs per. Sorry, I should say so many players to one ref.
Hmm.
But the reality is like in a I don't know in a game of rugby, you have one main ref and you might have some sideline refs as well. Um, so you actually some airsoft events have to be heavily refed because I think if we use Speedsoft for an example, the the gameplay in Speedsoft and the arenas that it's played is very, very small and it's very, very fast. So you have to have a million different eyes because if you catch something if you miss something that happens in a split second, that could be the difference between someone winning first or second overall, or or not, whatever it might be. So that's actually a really difficult environment because there's a lot going on and you have to be super attentive. But with outdoor skirmishing, the gameplay is a lot slower. Players are moving around the field a lot slower. You get kind of like en small engagements bubbling up and things like that, and they might carry on for a period of time. So, refs will watch that. So they'll kind of just like, we'll have like six refs that are constantly separated and moving around the field, and they'll just be looking for key situations that are playing out.
Hmm. What you said as well about like about the speed saw versus the milsim in term or skirmish in terms of like the speed, I think is a very important distinction. Simply like you said, because in these types of games, like that's not not being immediately on site to see everything is unlikely to make the difference in a larger scope. How do you look for your refs? Are you looking for airsofters who are not interested in playing, or are you looking for volunteers that you train to be refs? Like, how have you approached that in your community?
Yeah, so we've been really lucky that we've had refs that have been keen to come back for this season.
Okay.
So that makes life really easy. But we had a couple of new refs for the first round as well. And so basically, um, so the great thing about the how we structure the league as well is we have practice games. So that that helps everyone really. It gets everyone settled in. So the we think about the players a lot, but what I also think about with the practice games is I'm getting my refs settled in. I'm
Hmm.
getting everyone kind of like on the same page as to expectations and things like that. Um, to know what they need to be looking out for to make sure everyone's kind of moving around and paying attention and things like that, and everyone's kind of on top of understanding our lengthy rule set and things like that.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we do, and I I do watch the refs as well because you do need someone that has the right attitude because it is a ref position is a position of leadership, and it's also a position of power as well. So I do really, really pay attention to the people that we're using and just make sure that they're not using that position to be overly harsh with players. We want them to be attentive. We want them to make sure that they're penalising the players, but we also like absolutely require them to be fair about everything that they're doing.
And I remember when we talked about the penalties originally, like one of the things that really stood out is the idea that in airsoft, like when you break a rule historically, like in our community, like it's an attack on your character, right? It's like, oh, you
Hmm.
didn't call your
Yep.
hits, like you're a bad person.
Yep.
Versus treating it like in a sport, like if you trip someone in hockey, like you're not a bad person. You're just you broke a rule, accidentally or not, and there's a penalty that's associated. Well, you serve the penalty. you come right back. Exception, of course, being made for like gross like misconduct and stuff, which we're not
Yeah,
talking about here. It's like you
yeah, yeah,
broke a rule. You know what? Like that's you go serve your penalty and come back to the game. Like that's just it. And I really like that approach because it removes a lot of this like feeling bad about yourself for having broken a rule. Like you're going to feel bad because you got to serve a penalty and your team is going to be without you for a period of time, but then you're going to be back in the game and you have an opportunity to win it back or whatever. So I really like that approach. And I think what you were just saying about the refs, it becomes super important for refs not to purposefully make you feel bad, right? If you did something right.
yeah, yeah. And like players will get really upset, just like I was saying with the not putting their dead rags away. Like they get upset about it because they see it as like, oh, it's just a minor mistake. But we're setting the standard of like, yeah, it wasn't like we totally agree. You made a mistake. It was not intentional, but a mistake is a mistake. And a player gets penalized for it, and then he goes and tells his team like, oh man, like I got penalized for not putting my dead rag away. It really sucked. And then they're like, oh man, like we need to make sure that we don't make that same
Yeah,
mistake
thanks for the
because
warning. Yeah.
yeah, because we're losing points, and what we've generally found, like with the league in general, is it creates a really high standard that the players play to. The players play very hard. There are teams that are very much there to win, um, and but they know full well that they just will not get away with breaking rules. So
Hmm.
it creates a great standard, and I mentioned this not so long ago, but I really like what Dave from Zulu says about standards, and that is like if you don't uphold your standards, you do not have standards,
Correct.
and
Yeah.
and airsoft can get a little bit too relaxed at times, and it can create some really kind of negative flow-on effects.
Definitely. And I think, it's fine for airsoft to be relaxed and at a, random weekend skirmish with just the guys and you're having a great time and whatever. But once you create a formal structure and competition around it, then you need to have that's because if people are going to compete to it, then you have to have that standard. So I totally agree. I think it's just funny how you were saying like players get upset because like in any sport when you penalize a player the player is like, oh, this is bullshit, blah blah blah, but like really like they serve the penalty very very seldom. And I know it often makes the reels of like a player getting a penalty and being really upset and then going to the box and they can watch the replay on the camera and they're like, yeah, okay, like that's so rare that a player looks at the penalty and is like, yeah, you know what, that's on me, right? People are going to be upset, but I really like that approach. So, regardless, I want to talk about this event in particular. So,
Mhm.
like right out of the gate, my expectation, and we were talking about this, and I kind of know the answer already. I'm going to ask it anyway. Last season we have the Beeb Magnets who win the championship. So my expectation is they're going to come in really hard and they're going to drive the narrative in the first event. What was that like? Did you see that same sort of domination? How did things shake out?
Uh, some of it was predictable and some of it wasn't.
Okay.
So the bead magnets didn't make it onto the podium for the first round. But there was a team. There was a couple of teams that did that came first and second for the first round, and they were definitely teams where I had expectations for how they would perform, just because they are a couple of teams that they are there to win. And I think that's fantastic. That's why we created the league, to give these players the opportunity to do that. So that wasn't unexpected. But what was unexpected in a really great way was we had a brand new team that came on board for the 2026 season, and they actually got third overall for the first round, and that was something I didn't expect, because they were not only new to the league, but they were also new to the skirmish system as well. And the league is quite a different thing to get your head around, and it's not, and I actually don't expect players to fully get their heads around it and are really able to compete at a high level straight off the bat, especially when they're not familiar with the skirmish system as well. It's just, yeah, everything about the league is very, very different from what players are doing week to week.
Hmm.
So to see a team um, uh, be able to figure it out over a 2 day period, and by the end of it, come out of it in third position for the first round. I was super impressed, and there
So
were
what?
some very good players in there.
Yeah. So what does that look like actually when you think about a team that's starting out with the skirmish system, who doesn't know anything about it, to getting more adapted, or you look at some of the returning teams, like how does their behavior within the system change as they get more used to it?
Yeah, like we try and help players as much as we can, but we have a 2 day schedule, and another thing that we are pretty strict on is sticking to the schedule, because I don't know what it's like in other countries, but at times in New Zealand it can be horrendously shocking. Nothing runs on time. The schedule just blows out completely. So yeah, that's another thing we do is we have expectations. The schedule runs on time, and if we can, sometimes what catches players out is sometimes we get ahead of schedule, and if we get ahead of schedule, we run the schedule ahead of time. Um, because then that gives us a bit of a buffer. Um, but we advise players as much as we can, but at the end of the day, they need to get out on the field. And again, this is one of the reasons for the practice games. Is again coming from my sporting background and things like that. If we want to try and we want these players to be competing at the highest level they can over the weekend. So the best thing we can do is have 2 practice games, get everyone settled in, get everyone familiar, because we're going, the location is changing at every single round. So that's the other thing. Like some of these guys, it might be their first time at the field. So round 1 for this season was played at a brand new field. So for a lot of the guys, they were unfamiliar with the field. So just having those practice games gives them the ability to just get settled in, settle the nerves, get a bit of a team plan going, because that's the other thing. If you're competing as a team, you need a team cohesion, and now you're in a
Hmm.
competition where the points matter. So you need to work each other out. And again, the league is very new, so some of these teams, like in other sports like paintball or whatever it might be, some of these guys have been playing together for decades, and they're family. Like they live and breathe, and they know each other so well. It's like a best friend. Like you don't even need to say something. You just look at them a particular way, and they're like, "Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying,"
Yeah.
and you go do it.
Yeah.
So it is a lot to take on. So, and that's what I mean. I was super impressed with those guys for getting that podium finish when really they were going up against teams that were already experienced with the league.
Have you heard of, or do you expect that teams are training together outside of NZAL? Like, are they, either in the off season or in their in between matches, taking time as a group to play together, to bring their skills up together as a group, specifically to compete harder when it comes time to for the championship rounds?
There's definitely, I mean, all 3 of the teams that got a podium at first round do play together. They go to other events. The team that got third place, they competed at an event called the New Zealand TDM Triple, which is very much like an outdoor speed soft event.
Mm-hmm.
It's created by a guy that was ex-paintball, did paintball competitions. So they were competing in that. I think it must have been, God, those events might have been 2 weeks apart. So they went to the East Coast, competed in that, got second overall in that event. And then I think, yeah, 2 weeks later it was they were competing at the Airsoft League and got third overall. And the other two teams that got first and second, they are uh, both experienced groups that have played a lot of airsoft together.
And I'm just curious too, like, have you seen a shift in, like, this is a bit more like, I guess a meta question, but like, or the about the meta, but like, of like gear, like, are people changing their gear, modifying their gear? Have you seen a particular um like trend around like HPA versus AEG specifically for the league? Like, are people showing up to the league with different gear than they are at the regular skirmishes that you might have played, or even for some of the other ops that you run, like Armored Fury?
Mm. Yeah, well, a big thing with the league is we have a specific rule which states that that the only BBs that you're allowed to take into the field during game time are BBs in your magazines.
Mhm.
You can so you're not allowed speed loaders, you're not allowed bags of loose BBs on your person. All speed loaders and loose BBs have to be back at your main FOBs, if you want to call it that. So, um, but the league is very different. Like, your airsoft gun is a tool, so your main priority is to capture as many points as you can. Getting stuck into like long duration gunfights actually hurt you. So again, we try and prompt the players and say, "Hey, look, you need to reset how you think about airsoft, and understand like what is the objective. The objective is get as many points as you can within an hour and a half. Like, it is a set time. You have an hour and a half to get as many points as you can, and gunfights will help you in a situation, but only if you do it correctly. Otherwise, they can hurt you because you can get bogged down getting into a gunfight. So, some games we might hear of a player that's only used two mid caps in an hour and a half. So it just depends how they're playing. We haven't seen and that's what I mean. We wanted to stay very, very clear of Speedsoft. We did not want it to creep into a situation where our structure didn't keep it to unique.
Mhm.
We didn't want to, yeah, end up with this weird little blend of like it being kind of speed softy and kind of skirmishy and not really having its own proper identity.
And you mentioned a few times that, like, there are teams that are here to win, right? And understanding what you're saying about you have an hour and a half to get as many points as you can. How have teams become, I guess, more aggressive in terms of seeking out points from 2025 to this first iteration in 2026?
Yeah, they're just playing harder. They're being very strategic. They're thinking very, very deeply about what will give us the best chance of getting our team into a position where we can capture points. And listening to players' experience and things like that, there will be situations where they'll allow another team to kind of push into that area to make sure that area is clear, and then they'll basically swarm in and take advantage of those points. So these teams are thinking they are playing very, very hard, and they are thinking very, very carefully about how they can maximize their ability to get those points.
If you think about the actual event now, like the first event, what were some of the most surprising moments of seeing that sort of strategy play out for you, that you like? Because you were talking about how you can look at the map on Skirmesh, you can see how the boxes are interacting and stuff. As sort of an outsider looking into that event, were there moments where you're like, oh my god, like, that's crazy, I can't believe that just happened?
Yeah, I think for a lot of people, um, they, there's always people like when you can. For a long, long time, there was no way for us to understand what was happening on the field at any given time. And you'd have games where you're like, oh man, I thought we were just losing that game the entire time because for you or maybe your squad or whatever it might be, you're just getting hammered the whole time. But in actual fact, the rest of your team was actually doing a really good job of like, um, you know, winning more than the other team was, but there's just been no way of measuring that. Whereas with the skirmish system, it's like fantastic because we can actually anyone like if there's a live game of the league going on, you can literally anyone can just jump on the website and actually watch that game. And what's really interesting about it is because it's played on a over a long duration, so like the TDM triple, their games were 2 minutes. Every game was 2 minutes,
Wow.
whereas ours is an hour and a half. And an hour and a half, the the domination of one particular team will just come and go, and it just kind of when you watch that game in its entirety, it's just this constant fluid movements of teams coming in and holding position and then losing position and then moving on and so on and so on. And we had situations where we would be watching the game, and our other refs would also be watching, and they're like, "Oh no, like green team's just absolutely dominating the game. That's not good because for everyone for such a long time there was such a massive focus on team balance."
Hmm.
And all of a sudden they can see what's happening on a game and they're going, oh, green team's dominating the situation. I said, and they're actually getting concerned about it, and they're like, do we need to step in? And we're like, whoa, 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 we do nothing. And I was like, all I want you to do is take a step back and just watch. And what you'll see is in the next 15 minutes, blue team's going to come in and they're going to maneuver through, and all of a sudden you're going to see things flip
Hmm.
because one team cannot hold an entire field. And some of our competing fields are 48 acres, they're huge. No one team can ever hold an entire field for an hour and a half. So you just let it happen, and it
Hmm.
will. And every single time I watch one of those games, I'm always surprised at how it just changes and evolves, and you see these really interesting like little flanks happening. Yeah, yeah. The skirmish system is really cool tech in it, and it actually makes watching a game entertaining.
Yeah, and that's a really advantageous piece of it as well. I know we attended an event in Ontario late last year, and they had a similar sort of setup where they could see like live points on a map, and that helps
Mhm.
even the commanders as well with their planning. Like you were saying, like teams can look at an area and say, okay, we're going to let them push in so we can swarm them, and then move on and take a couple other points. So
Mhm.
that's definitely bringing airsoft to a next level in terms of like having a mini map with like kind of almost like a video game, right? Like you have a mini map, you can
Yep.
see the enemy players,
Yep.
like all this kind of stuff.
100%.
I'm curious about event one. Is there anything that nearly went wrong from your standpoint as an organizer that maybe the players did not see?
Oh, no, something did go wrong, and everyone got to see that play out. So we use a Starlink because the skirmish system needs a hard internet connection. So we use Starlink. It's fantastic, and the lesson for myself and my business partner was that's a trap. Anytime something just works and always works is gonna fail, and it's gonna fail at the wrong time. And to be fair, it failed at the right time. So we had just what happened is we had just finished the practice game, and I was actually setting up for the second practice game, and I just wasn't able to connect to the skirmish system to set up. And I was like, oh, that's a little bit weird. Long story short, the router, the Starlink router, had crapped out, and we don't have a spare router. Um, and it was just a bit of a domino effect, because then we're like, no worries, I'll hotspot my phone to my laptop and we'll use my laptop. And my laptop had a corruption issue and it wouldn't work.
Oh my God.
So yeah, so for me, thinking so deeply about the player experience, I was about to have a heart attack, and I was very stressed, and could barely think what it was, like how I was going to resolve this issue, and we ended up sending one guy to go get a local guy to go get his laptop. I sent my business partner. He drove half an hour to go buy a new Starlink. Um, we got a new laptop, got everything back up and running. So we basically our practice games are 45 minutes long. So we had to scrap the second practice game. But my whole concern was we just need this resolved for the championship game, because we have two practice games and then we have the first championship game on the first day, and then we have two championship games on the second day. So everyone went to work, we got it resolved, and everything was back up and running for the championship game. But yeah, things do go wrong, and it's the hard learning lesson for any event organizer that, hey, look, it's great that we now have two Starlink kits, so now we've got spares.
Yeah, yeah.
And I need to upgrade my laptop. So then, if we do have a Starlink go down, we've got the laptop as a background, as a backup.
Yeah.
And there is no blueprint to what we're doing, and we also, we have limited resources. We're not a multi-million-dollar organization that can have, an abundance of like spare equipment. So yeah, it's just a lesson to be learned, and we've got it figured out, and we got back into it.
And what about on the flip side? Like there's changes that you brought in from 2025 into 2026. Was there anything in particular that you were expecting to be maybe a bit more problematic, or a sticking point that just went actually much smoother than you expected?
I think our biggest concern was just the new game structure with the three teams and how that was going to play. Because we had a preseason event, but it really lacked the numbers to see it happen at scale. So that was our main concern, is just making sure that the three team structure would flow and just work really well for everyone. Because again, it's like, as an event producer, like you just think so deeply about the player experience, and you just want that structure to work really, really well. You want players to come off the field and go, that was really cool. I really liked being on that team and playing in that particular way. So then we can go, cool. We got it right.
Yeah, and I'm curious to hear a little bit about what those disruptors players are like. Like, what's the typical disruptor player profile? Because in my expectation, I'm like, well, if you're a serious airsofter, you're likely going to want to compete with your team on a team. Whereas I expect the disruptors would just be like random people who are just like maybe just sort of interested. Like, is that what it's like, or do you have really experienced players who are like, I do not want to compete at all, and this is the perfect team for me?
Yeah, it's worked out really, really great, because it just gives us ability to like really accommodate all players. Normally, a competition only accommodates players that are there to compete, and if you don't like competing, you're not coming to this event. We do, those events do not cater to that, and that's fine. We've just been in a unique position where, because of our structure, a non-competing player actually brings value to what we're doing. And so what we've actually seen is we've seen like previous teams that have come and competed at the league that have uh, just like haven't fully like enjoyed the competitive side of it, and they're like, we really like the event. We just decided that we didn't want to compete, but we'd actually just like to come back as disruptor players. And so yeah, so and then you'll have players that are like, oh, hey, like I'm not 100% sure if I'm going to be available for the weekend because of work or whatever it might be. And then, come the day before the start of the event, they're like, oh, actually, I am free. Cool, like I can just sign up as a disruptor and come play 2 days of airsoft. So it's really, that role has like been really, really awesome. It does bring real value to what we're doing, and it just accommodates a lot of different players.
And you mentioned like the feedback from the players who are disruptors is very positive. I'm
Mhm.
curious, like, what is the feedback from other players as well? I'm assuming you're gathering feedback from everyone who's involved, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like I say, we feel very deeply about a player's experience. I'd go as far to say that we at times probably care too much.
Hmm.
Um, because like yeah, it does, when someone's not 100% happy, like it affects me, and whether it's a valid problem or not, because you also get players that are just have shit attitudes basically, but you still got to go through the motions and listen to what they have to say. Um, so yeah, we do, yeah, we think very, very carefully, and we listen to what people are saying, because what all it boils down to is if you can put your ego aside, um, then listen to and that doesn't mean, basically you've got to listen to people, because someone might say something that actually gives you the ability to improve on what you're doing, and that's a fantastic situation. So it improves your event, getting that key piece of information. But that doesn't mean that any man and his dog can walk up to you and say something and you go, oh, okay, just because you said that, I'm going to change what we're doing.
Hmm.
Because people, you've also got to sift through the people that have their own personal agendas. They want it to be a particular way because that suits them. And the thing that they will find difficult is when, we'll look at what that person's saying and just say, hey, look, we have to cater to everyone, and we need to make sure that any change we make is suitable for the majority, not the minority.
Yeah, it's like that saying, don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from, right? Like
Hmm.
it's this sort of that mentality. Like I'm happy to hear any of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to do something with that, depending on what my particular goals are for that event. So I take that. Looking at this, the league for the sort of the remainder of this year, and sort of the two more championships that you have left, do you have room for growth? Like, is there room for more teams to join the league? I know disruptor players is certainly one thing, but it's like,
Hmm.
if you have more teams that want to join, like, do you have space and capacity for that, or are you
Yeah,
currently maxed out?
100%. I mean, the league is not huge. We're in the second season of the league, and in New Zealand, people are very, and maybe it's the same in other countries as well, but generally speaking, players are very, very cautious. They won't just dive into something. They'll tend to. You'll get a small subset of players that will dive headfirst into it. You can just connect with them. They understand what you're doing, and they'll get amongst it really quickly. Whereas a large percentage of players will be very, very cautious. You basically have to prove to them through other players So they'll wait for other players to come back and go, oh man, like you should have gone to the league. Like it's really, really fun. And then they'll go, oh, okay, cool. Like
Hmm.
we'll go to the next one then. So, but our whole structure could accommodate hundreds of players. It's done in a way that can be scaled up and then scaled down. And in New Zealand it has to,
Hmm.
because we don't have the population, say, that like Zulu 24 has, where you can just have 150 to 300 players just rock up on a given Saturday just to play airsoft. When you got that kind of scale and everyone's paying a ticket, yeah, you got some resources to work with, but
Hmm.
for us, we don't always have that. So we have to be very, very smart and be able to scale things down and still run a successful event. And then when you've got the good numbers, like fantastic, like you've got more resources to work with, and we can scale it up.
And one of the things that we had talked about before, and that was very important to you, is structuring this like a sports league, because it is a sports league, but structuring it in a more like sports league fashion compared to other airsoft stuff, in order to be able to connect more with like sponsors and media coverage and all this kind of stuff. Um,
Mhm.
how has media coverage in particular changed in 2026 compared to last season, or evolved? I think is probably the better word to use.
It's just something we're always working on. It's something that we work on with all our events. Is this, I don't know, this impossible strategy of communication and marketing and all of that kind of stuff. And like I really enjoy that kind of stuff. Sometimes it's really, really hard to measure, but we're always looking at new opportunities to work with new people, or strengthen our ability to work with other people. Like we had Andy, who's the marketing guy for a big airsoft retailer in New Zealand, but he's based down in the South Island. So we finally managed to get him up to the first round, and that's something that we've been working on for ever since the start of the last season. And he's a fantastic person. He's so deeply passionate about airsoft, and he's so positive. He's just really good to kind of talk to and bounce ideas and do these kind of projects with. So again, like having him at the event, him being able to see it, him bringing his skill set to the table and things like that, it brings massive value. But again, it's all wrapped up in resources and things like that. If we had
Yeah.
$1 million, we could do a lot of things.
Yeah, that's isn't that's the problem, right?
Yeah.
Is is the league evolving in the way that you expected it to when you set out, when you started thinking about this 2 years ago, 3 years ago?
Well, the reality is we were talking about the league like 8 years ago. It's starting having conversations with people about it. Um, but what really got the league off the ground was the technology. To do what we're doing without the skirmish system would be impossible, um, because it would require a lot more admin. It would be all manual. It would be really, really challenging, and it would be really, really challenging to replicate that multiple times a year. And like the system's fantastic, but we can't just rely on the system. We rely on refs and ourselves and all of these things, which is actually the unpredictable thing.
Hmm.
Turning on the skirmish system and making sure it's operating correctly is actually pretty easy. The human side of it is a bit more challenging because other people have things going on in their lives.
Yeah.
We're able to dedicate the time to what we're doing because we created a company to do it. So we
Yeah.
kind of
Well,
forced ourselves.
yeah, you have no choice. um,
um, but yeah, it's evolving. It's to create any kind of to create any airsoft event, and especially to create a national championship, it is it's hard. Like it is brutally hard, and we live in a world where everyone can share their opinions in many different ways, and so freely without any kind of consequence. So to do this is so hard, and you have to be so thick-skinned. And you are just, and again, when there is no blueprint, all your lessons you learn, a lot of them are made the hard way,
Yeah.
and you just have to get smashed in the face and just keep moving forward.
Well, it's like that saying, right? Nothing worth doing is ever easy, right? And if it were easy, chances are that it would already exist. Someone would already have done it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think in event organizing, one of the things that you also see is people who start organizing it and then they butt against how hard it is. And in many cases, they'll take the easy route to try and still do the event or whatever it is that they're planning. And then it just ends up not being the quality that you want. And I think one of the things that you've talked about a lot, but it is so important, is the player experience that is at the core of everything that you do.
Hmm.
And so, as a consequence of that, it's not possible for you, or it should not be in the conversation, to deliver poor quality in order to make it easier on you. In fact, in many ways, and you mentioned this in a different way, but you make it harder on yourself specifically to be able to give the best possible experience, perhaps to a fault, but regardless, right? That's part of that, is that conversation. So it's, it doesn't surprise me that, when you're like, oh well, this is hard, because you're doing something that you want to be high quality. That's never going to be easy, no matter whether it's airsoft or not, right? Personal life, professional life, whatever, like it's always going to be more challenging, but that's what makes it worthwhile, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Like anything that you do in life that was like a real struggle and you accomplish it, the quality of what you get out of that accomplishment is huge. It's not a quick little dopamine hit, which is, what a lot of what we get out of life and things like that. But it's always just scratching the surface, and yeah, you get a little buzz out of it, and then you forget about it after 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Whereas, yeah, you struggle through something really hard over a long period of time. You know this with the things that you do outside of airsoft. It's really difficult. And I think I think competing in any kind of sport is actually personal development. Like
Yeah.
that's where you learn resilience. That's where like if you look at every great sports person, the tippy top, the 1% of all athletes across every single sport, everyone sees the the wins, but no one pays attention to the fact that they have lost over and over and over and over again. I can't remember the guy's name, but a professional golfer once said, if you win 5% of the time over your entire career, your entire professional career, if you only win 5%, you're in the Hall of Fame.
Hmm.
So that means 95% of your entire career you lost, and you will be in the Hall of Fame. You will be one of the greatest players to play that game. 5%.
Yeah.
So it's like that's what people don't really pay attention to, is the level of resilience and personal struggle that anyone goes through. Yeah, we can laugh about it at an airsoft level because it's not really that serious, but like you as a person learn a lot from going through that.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this on the show, and again, looking at the Olympics as a background, there's that American figure skater Alyssa Liu who talks about how she loves to struggle, right?
Hmm.
And because that's where growth is, right? Like
Yeah.
when things are easy, when you're showing up to the airsoft field and you're just dominating all day long and you go home, like what have you learned? Like nothing.
Nothing.
But when you're struggling, or and it's not just airsoft, like you were saying, it's anything in life. I think about running. For me, like I go out and I have an absolute garbage run. Well, why did that happen? Like, is it because I didn't sleep enough? Is it because I didn't eat enough? Is it because of XYZ reasons? And that means that the next time I go to face that, I will approach it differently. And I'm sure
Hmm.
that for a lot of your teams coming to the championship, and maybe the bead magnets who are like looking at, hey, we won last year overall, and now we didn't actually even make the podium this time. They're probably looking at this, okay, like what do we need to do differently? Or hopefully they're looking at this going, okay, what needs to change, right? What did we learn from that? What are we going to do differently next time? And then try and apply it, because you're right, you're never going to win all the games. Otherwise you're not in the right space, right? So I'm just curious though, before I let you go, what is, if for your money, who is the team to watch this year?
Oh, I really don't want to say because I don't want to discourage anyone else. Like there's obviously teams that I could easily say could easily take out the championship, but what I'm really now curious about is the fact that we had this brand new team to the 2026 season that got third place. And so for me, now it just makes me realize that, oh, we could have any team come, compete at a round. They don't even need to compete for the championship, but it just kind of sets this tone that we can have a team register, they can come compete at a particular round, and there is no reason why they can't compete against these teams that already have that experience, or that people expect them to win and things like that. Like, no, there are teams out there in New Zealand, and I call you all out. Come along to the league, because you might just surprise yourself. And I think those guys, they're obviously good players, but I think they probably surprised themselves that they were able to get a podium finish. So, you know, there's other teams out there. That's the thing. You just got to get amongst it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that your season is only just starting. You got two more events. It's going to be really interesting to see how some of those storylines unfold, and if you do have indeed players and teams who come from out of the woodwork, right, show up and they start, with podium finishes, just like this team did this time around. Hopefully, our listeners as well. Like for those of you who are in New Zealand, like if you're not involved in league right now, this is no time like the present. But Jonno, thank you so much for being on and talking to us about what you guys are doing down there. It's so fascinating, and I can't wait to connect with you again and tell you about how our league is doing, and maybe compare some notes at some point. Um, but yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, and I look forward to when we're planning the Airsoft League World Cup.
Yeah, that's going to be maybe not this year, but maybe next year perhaps.
I'll plant the seed, which would be New Zealand. So yeah, New Zealand, US. We'll suggest Dave from Zulu do a round, and then Canada,
Yeah,
3 rounds World Cup.
yeah, I think that would be. Yeah, I would love to see that. Actually, to be honest, I think that would be fantastic.
All right,
Yeah,
give me an excuse.
yeah, there's no excuse. You just got to figure it out. No, that's it.
Yeah, yeah. Let's figure it out.
All right. Well, listen, thanks so much for being here, guys. Thanks so much for listening. That's all we've got for you this week. We'll talk to you next week. Take care.